starting off, now I was going to pick 5 games, but I chose 6 because one of these games I picked came out last year, technically, so I'm breaking the rules already. But number 6, Salt and Sanctuary. I really loved Salt and Sanctuary. Yes, Coach Miller, I'm not going to be talking about that though. really, maybe later. But really enjoy Salt and Sanctuary. I'm a big Dark Souls fan and a big Metroidvania fan. So this is kind of like 2 perfect things aligning. I don't think the game is itself perfect. It does have some issues, maybe some balance changes, some jumping little mechanical tweaks, but this is really maybe the first game since Aria of Sorrow, where it's like a 2D Metroidvania that I loved. Metroidvania game that I loved. It's phenomenal. The moves you get, the double jumping, the little shift jumping around the world, super unique things, like reversing the gravity where you're going around. And maybe that's not super unique, actually. Castlevania Symphony of the Night did that. But really enjoy this. Had to do some fantastic bosses that are really memorable. I remember, like, there's the first night guy. There's this crazy witch that shoots a bunch of weird spells. The dodge mechanic, it's very much Souls in 2D and not in a way of like, they're just copied Souls. Like, no, they distilled Dark Souls down into 2 dimensions and made something really compelling and really fun. And it does so many things well. So many things well. Ton of fun. That's the bottom line at the end of all of this. At the end of everything, every single game or whatever I'll highlight, it's a ton of fun to play. Like, even with weird complaints I have, I do die. It's a ton of fun. Definitely recommend getting it. It's out now on Steam. I believe it came out a couple weeks ago. Totally worth it. It's got these crazy monster creatures too. There aren't games like this. I'm also really shitty apparently. There aren't a lot of the indie scene really has embraced Metroidvanias, but not like this. Not in the way that definitely feels old school in a really good way. A lot of these games, it's Metroidvania, but like Ori and the Blind Forest is Metroidvania, but not the same. It's not the same as this. Really fun. The art style puts you off. I can see that. It's not generic, but it is kind of, the coloring and the lighting really betrays it. That was one of my complaints about the game. Look how dark it is. But there are scenes that aren't as dark that are gorgeous, and it's very well animated. So it's got a great sense of style. It's got great artwork in there, but it's covered up with this like filtering, and the lighting is drab. It really just, it needs to shine. A game like this can be very beautiful. It needs to shine. But besides all that, the game itself is great. And if you're looking for something like that, it does not disappoint. It does not disappoint any fan of Symphony of the Night or even like Dark Souls. Even if you're just a fan of Dark Souls and you're like, ooh, 2D Dark Souls, it definitely fills that void too. It's not as hard. Especially towards the end of the game, you can really kind of game the system for some of these bosses. It's still fun though. So these enemies suck. There's some weird hit detection with them. Anyway, very fun game. So that's number 6, Salt and Sanctuary. Phenomenal. Also, strangely, a lot of views on it. I don't know why. Oh, I should close that. Okay. Now, completely switching gears is The Witness. And I first should say that my review of The Witness is like 40 minutes long. And it's basically me just yelling at this game for being like so close to perfection to me. And that's why it's like 5. It's number 5 on my weird list right now, because I love puzzle games. Specifically, dumb, simple little puzzles like this, where I'm drawing little lines and it's a logical little progression, and then symbols get added and you're kind of solving a mystery on a puzzle board. Yeah, I will kind of echo my review in that 75% of The Witness is easily one of the best games I've ever played. Easily, I love it to death. And then the other 25% is infuriating because so the story is terrible and non-existent and not terrible like it's objectively bad, but terrible in a way of like I don't care. There's no reason to be here. Why are all these stupid, poignant messages scattered around the world? They don't add anything. So there's that. Then there's the place like the audio bamboo jungle where it's just infuriating to solve, and I do not like it. I do not understand. Even looking at the answers, I still don't understand why these are the answers. You didn't tell me. You didn't train me. And I love the rest of the game. I love the rest of the game so much. Just solving the puzzles. I'm about to go to the dual line twin snakes area, which is phenomenal. And the way it progresses through teaching you mechanics in areas like that, perfection. Perfection. That being said, though, I feel like if The Witness had just stopped trying to be so hoity-toity, we're not ever giving you a tutorial, we could have solved some more interesting puzzles. And you can see right there, this is how the game teaches you. Like, oh, I didn't do it right. Okay. You got to separate the colors. Maybe that's not a good week to say that. But these puzzles, like, even with my stupid complaints, you don't have to beat the sound place to beat the game. And maybe it's not about beating the game. Because, well, that's not true. Because if you beat everything, then you get to go to this little underground area, and there's even more puzzles. And that's what I wanted the whole game to be. Walking around this island isn't necessarily as interesting as like if you just gave me the puzzles, because the puzzles themselves are phenomenal. I loved it all for the vast majority of it. Solving, like looking at things like, oh shit, there's a shadow on this, like that means something. Or seeing a new symbol and being like, okay, what does that do? And that's why I have some frustrations with it, is because there's certain symbols like the one that removes one mistake from the board. So you have to make one mistake and then complete the board. Stuff like that is underutilized, but I love it. I love all that it's, you know, like I can complain about the 25% I don't like, but that doesn't take away from the other 75% of the game where I was drawing notes and I used up like all my post-it notes to make Tetris blocks so I could fit them together on a thing in the physical space. And that week of playing this game, I was playing the game for like 5 hours at a time, not even meaning to, because it was so good. I really took to it, and maybe I should have done some of the shitty parts not at the end. I ended up doing like all the parts I didn't like right at the end, which kills it a little bit. But that being said, The Witness is phenomenal. Truly, there's no stop. You're doing the puzzle wrong. Stop. Like just looking at this, I'm like, yeah, I want to play The Witness game, and I really could. I'm not doing very well at this puzzle because this is something, you know, 6 months out you can come back and do all the puzzles again, and just do the puzzles I want to do, not the shitty sound puzzles. No, I'm not doing those. There, I'm a genius. Genius. Probably not a genius. Oh god, it's so fucking good. But I don't think there's a lot of, like, didn't IGN give it a 10? I don't think it's a 10. It's not perfect. People stop blowing this game. Pun, because Jonathan Blow. But it's really good. It's still really good. You can't discount it. My thumbs up review. Great significant other game. That's true. There's another game like that coming up on my list here to play with other people. It's a ton of fun, and like looking at the puzzles and seeing like, do I want to do this here or move that around here, or what if you try this? That's very true. It's very can be collaborative. So I already talked about Dark Souls and how much I love Dark Souls. So Dark Souls 3, I'm disappointed by Dark Souls 3 in that it didn't blow my mind. But other than that, they basically delivered a very, very good sequel to Dark Souls 1, even though it was Dark Souls 2, but this is more of a direct sequel to Dark Souls 1. And they did, it basically checks all the boxes that you want from Dark Souls. And unlike other Dark Souls games, the middle is the weird, nebulous, not as interesting part in terms of difficulty and what you're doing. But the beginning, 10 hours, the last areas in the game, the final 5 areas or so, phenomenal. Phenomenal. And I just, there are moments like fighting this guy or fighting the boss. Maybe it's not the one directly after this, but the one after it. Loved it. I love all the changes to the mechanics that make it a little faster. I loved Bloodborne. I got the platinum in Bloodborne. I played too much Bloodborne. It's great. I'm not as in love with this game as I am with Bloodborne. It definitely suffers from like, I've been here before. I've done these things. This isn't as interesting as this place in Dark Souls or this place in Dark Souls 2 or whatever. It definitely suffers from that. But when this game is on and good, it is some of the best stuff in the Souls series, and it's going to be really tough to go back. This is one of those games where it's like, why would I go back to Dark Souls 2? Why would I go back to Dark Souls 1? Like, unless I just want to play Dark Souls 1, but if you want the pure distillation of everything Souls is, you do not need to play 1 and 2. You can jump into 3. Now, it might be a little difficult. This is my first attempt against that boss. And then the next attempt is when I win. That's how I edit things. But it's like, the soul is there. Soul. It's not as intricate as Dark Souls 1 in terms of the world, but it still works very well. You're still going out on an adventure in some direction, not exactly knowing where you're going, and seeing unknown sights, seeing these bosses which are incredibly horrific. My favorite Souls game. I played them all. Yeah, I mean, I played and beat them all as well. I have to give the edge to Demon Souls just because it's like the first one I played. But from a gameplay perspective, 3 is hands down the most honed experience. It is the most polished. It is Dark Souls. Like, it is unabashedly Dark Souls. It does not try to be anything else. It does not try to do anything else. It's Dark Souls. Here it is. And that's great. That's some good shit right there. It doesn't need to be super amazing with all this other stuff. Like, could there have been surprises? And when I say surprises, I guess I mean something along the lines of, in Dark Souls 1, there are certain moments, like Sen's Fortress is like, whoa, this place is out of left field. I didn't expect something like this. Or then you go to Anor Londo, like, I didn't expect that to happen. Or when you're going to Seath and you can't see the platforms, like, I didn't expect this at all to happen. Or in the forest and there's all the ghosts of all the starting classes. Like, there's nothing quite like any of those areas. There's a few really interesting moments. A couple optional areas are very interesting. But maybe that's just not surprising because I've played all the other Souls games. So, doesn't necessarily matter. It's so good. I love this boss fight, and then I love the one at the top of the castle, and then I guess is the second to last boss fight. That fight's phenomenal with the guy and then his like brother or sister or whatever like gets on him and starts just shooting magic at you. Loved that fight. Fucking some of the best fights in Souls. Period. Bar none. Some of the best bosses. Emphasis on dodging straight from Bloodborne. I really do want to see Bloodborne 2 though, because I love the regain mechanic with that, and I feel like it added something to it. By making it more of an action game, it made it different enough that it didn't feel like Dark Souls. And at this point I've played, what, 1, 2, 3, maybe 400 hours of Dark Souls, like across the whole series. I played it enough where I've the differentiation of Bloodborne was very interesting. Archdragon Peak, that's true. That's true. That was really cool. But that's optional. That's the thing with a lot of these areas. Oh, but nothing's gonna beat what is it, Ash Lake in Dark Souls 1? Where you go down, you're just like in this tree, you're like, what the fuck's going on? And then you drop down into this gorgeous vista, I guess you could call it, where you're underneath the world and the sand dunes and there's trees popping everywhere. That is unmatched in any of the other Souls games. That is, I'll never forget that area. I'll forget what it's called because I'm terrible at remembering that, but I will never forget that area. High Lord Wolfnir followed by arriving at the Boreal Valley. I don't remember who won Game of the Year. No one did. We're not there yet. Will. Thanks for stopping by. I don't remember Wolfnir specifically by name. Well, before arriving, followed up by arriving. Okay, the Boreal Valley was really cool. The place, I won't spoil it. I don't know why I won't spoil it, but the area from the other game that's in this isn't, I don't think, handled super well. It's just kind of like, hey, you want a reference? Alright, I guess I do. I mean, I was kind of fine with it being weird and vague, but if you're going to be on the nose, this is the area to pick. Did I have that thing up the whole time, so I had the pause button? Oh, the giant skeleton. That was cool. That was cool, yes. I told you I'm very bad at names. I liked the boss right before that area too, with like the other dead bodies that would come up and help you, kind of. Sometimes that was very interesting. I really liked that boss. The skeleton was fine, but I realized very quickly, oh, attack the bracelets, and then it's like a 5-second fight. So I don't know. Maybe I screwed myself out of that one. I don't know how I figured that out. Probably an accident. Pokemon. I have not played Pokemon Go. There is no Pokemon Go portion. And I'll tell you why. I have a very hard time doing anything on my phone that's going to drain the battery. So I basically don't use my phone. I have to check email. I play Neko Atsume. It's a very fun kitty game with kitty cats. But yeah, what more can be said about Dark Souls 3? I wish they'd change some of the systems for like armor and weapons. I think Bloodborne had a really good system for that with the augments. Something not less complex, but less convoluted than that, because that was, here's 7,000 upgrade gems, and now I gotta sort through all of them to figure out what's the best one. I guess I could have sold all the other ones, but something along that would be very interesting. It could be argued that Dark Souls 3 tried to be a bit too referential to itself. That's true-ish. I can agree with that. I do like that stuff as well, but it's vague. It's vague enough where you're like, is this the same area? It's very different looking. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. It's not like they had Gravelord Nito. They had like a big old casket and then like the dead body of Nito sitting there. They didn't have that. They just, in terms of referential bullshit, they could have gone way further and been like, all right, guys, stop. But they didn't. And I kind of respect that. There was a lot of, oh, that's an amazing moment in Dark Souls 3 when in the Poison Swamp area, which I forget the name of. Again, bad names. But you find the middle section, you take the elevator up, and it's the archway from Dark Souls 1. That was incredible. That's one of my favorite moments of the game. Was just seeing that, like, holy shit, this is all connected, and you can see the entire world from that vantage point. Didn't even spell Nito. Right. I'm not acknowledging it, but that was an amazing moment in the game. Stop living in the past. Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. Where am I? Oh, I'm in the end game. This is where the game Dark Souls 3 really picks up again to me. This castle area. Moving on.